Drive yourself insane tonight. It's not that far away, and I just filled up your tank earlier today. Greetings, people of YouTube. Welcome back to Pick the Bass. Alkaline Trio certainly has a way with words. When they showed up in 1996,
they changed the way we did things.
They write spooky love songs. They use dark imagery and gory storytelling as metaphors for real-world issues. They sneak emo into punk rock like moms sneak vegetables into dinner. They are world-class musicians and next-level songwriters. Alkaline Trio is everything we were promised by the Misfits but never received.
I love Alkaline Trio.
Matt Skiba is usually thought of as the star. He was in Blink-182. That's pretty hard to beat. But for me, Alkaline Trio is at its best when the focus is on Dan. I love the way he writes songs, the way he plays the bass, and I really love his lyrics and vocals.
Us bass players with low voices, bald heads, and facial hair need to stick together.
Come along with me as I explore what makes Dan a bass-playing badass.
Let's do this!
Dan Andriano was born in 1977 in Illinois. I feel like if you were born in 1977, you have to be punk.
It's the law.
In 1993, Dan started the ska punk band Slapstick. When they broke up in 1996, he went on to form the band Tuesday. It was while he was in Tuesday that Matt Skiba reached out and asked him to join the newly formed Alkaline Trio, which luckily he accepted. While he may not have been a founding member of the trio, Dan has been on every LP to date, and it's certainly the band that we all think of him from. Normally I talk about how a band fits into my history. With Alkaline Trio, it's a different story. I haven't been a huge fan since God Damn It came out in 1998, or even when its follow-up, Maybe I'll Catch Fire, came out in the year 2000. When those albums came out, I was aware of them, but they did nothing for me. It took me a surprisingly long time to dig Alkaline Trio. I didn't get into them until early 2024. As a rule, I will periodically revisit things that I don't like to see if I've changed my mind. The way I see it, if a bunch of people love something, there must be a reason, and I want to know what it is. When Matt Skiba joined Blink-182 in 2015, I decided to revisit the band that I had written off nearly 20 years earlier. I love Blink-182 more than just about anything, so if Matt was good enough for Blink, then Alkaline Trio
must be a good time.
I tried the first two albums again, and they still weren't doing it for me. And then I moved on to From Here to Infirmary. I really enjoyed it, so I kept the party going with Good Morning. Good Morning did nothing for me, and just like that, I had moved on from Alkaline Trio once again. I spent the next few years telling myself I would circle back to From Here to Infirmary and then check out the rest of their catalog, but it was never the right time. Then at some point in early 2024, I finally got around to it, and this time it clicked. It was hard to believe that this was the band that I had tried and failed to like so many times in the past. This sort of thing is my bag.
Baby.
Was that so hard?
I took a deep dive into their catalog, and after a few months of nothing but the trio, I had been reborn as an Alkaline Trio superfan. I don't know how I didn't love them in the past, because now I don't think I could live without them. I finally understand what their song This Addiction is about. It's about the music, man. The music.
It is the mucus that binds us.
Alkaline Trio is incredible, and I must have them. It's only been a year or so, but they're top tier for me now, hanging with the upper crust of punk rock bands like NoFX, Lagwagon, Blink-182, and The Descendants. I love Matt Skiba. He writes great songs. He writes great lyrics. I love the way he plays guitar, and he has a great voice. Matt is a legend and deserves
mad props, son.
But Dan does it for me so much more.
So much more!
Strap in, people. It's story time. In my youth, I was in a lot of bands with my friend Jason. We learned how to play music together. We learned how to write songs, how to pen lyrics, how to come up with melodies, and how to sing harmonies. All of it
together.
We went from not knowing how to play a chord to being somewhat respectable and nearly professional. He was my first and best writing partner, and we wrote a lot of songs that I still love today. After high school, when I decided to damn the torpedoes and pursue music as a career, Jason decided to go to college. He definitely made the better choice, but I bet I had
Way more fun.
Anyway, Jason's vocals have always been dear to me, and every once in a while I hear him in other people's singing. That feels like a lot of exposition to get to this. Dan's vocals remind me of Jason's, and so
I love them.
I love how warm and gritty Dan's vocals can be. You can almost feel them. Dan is also a great lyricist. Matt Skiba's lyrics are often drenched in metaphor and usually focus on being spooky. Dan's lyrics get straight to the point and seem to focus on self-destruction. I find that I can relate to him more.
Which probably isn't the best.
We're not here to talk about vocals though. We're here for the bass. Dan might be one of the most well-rounded punk rock bass players that I've ever heard. He's in a power trio, and with that comes great responsibility and a lot of space to fill. His style covers a lot of ground, and at any given point, he could sound like a completely different player. He clearly has incredible chops, although he has no problem writing the root notes through an entire song. He always seems to know just what to play. He fills in space between vocals with bass runs and uses chords to beef up the sound. He can dazzle you with grooves and melody, or he might hold out a single note if that's what feels best. He sits very well with some of my other power trio favorites like Mike Dirnt and Mark Hoppus. Dan's tone is second to none. It's changed a bit over the years with his taste in gear, but it's always been quintessentially punk rock. Lots of drive, great low end, and super bright. In the early days of Alkaline Trio, Dan mostly played jazz basses and even had his own custom GPC model for a while. At some point in the mid-2000s, he started shifting to P basses and hasn't really gone back.
We have to go back!
He's known for using a Marshall Major in the studio and orange amps on stage. Like all bass players, he can also be seen using Ampeg SVT heads and cabs on occasion. Before I get into what I think are a few of Dan's standout tracks, I should mention that I didn't go with anything from the early albums. I know everyone's gonna lose it when I don't mention songs like Radio, Armageddon, or We've Had Enough. While those songs and bass lines were killer, I find the mixes to be muddy and the bass hard to hear, so I'm sticking with new tracks where you can really hear what's going on. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the earlier albums, and whatever songs you love that I ghosted are totally awesome. We should talk about them down in the comments. Except for Radio.
Why do you guys love that song so much?
The first track that I want to talk about is Demons and Division, from the album Is This Thing Cursed? I think this is their most underrated album, and for me, it ties with From Here to Infirmary for second best Alkaline Trio album. If I had to pick a favorite trio song, it would be the title track, Is This Thing Cursed?
I tried to throw it in the river, but it washed up in my sink. And now the city cut my water, and it's all I have to drink.
The feels on that track are amazing, but Demons and Division has such an awesome bass line. I'm a sucker for bass chords, and nobody does it better than a punk rock bassist.
Check out a bit of the intro.
I got some poison on the brain, and I'm not scared, I'm not ashamed no more of anything but the rain.
It's time to get a bit controversial. So far, the best Alkaline Trio album is their latest, Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs. They're 26 years into their career, and their songs still sound as fresh and exciting as ever. I would imagine that Matt felt that he had something to prove after his departure from Blink-182, and he delivered so hard with this one. I was overjoyed to have Tom DeLonge back in Blink, and One More Time is an awesome album, but Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs is vastly superior and shows that Matt is every bit the giant that the Blink Boys are. So the next two songs that I want to talk about are both from Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs, the best Alkaline Trio album
Ever.
First up is the song Meet Me. Dan grabs me right away by coming in with a slide. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a sucker for a bass slide. I hear a bass slide, I'm happy.
That's how it goes.
We then get a really groovy bass line that repeats through the song's verses. It's super dancey. It almost has a bit of a Latin feel to it.
No, not that. Something Latin.
Specify.
A mambo. That's more like it.
The choruses are slow and low and have a great vibe. And then there's the bridge. I love the bridge. It's really just root notes and fifths, but it reminds me a lot of A Forest by The Cure. I love The Cure. So anyway,
check out a bit of the intro.
The last song I want to bring up is the title track from Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs. Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs. This song is a banger, and Dan doesn't let up for a second. It reminds me of something Matt Freeman might play. It might not be as fast and crazy as Matt usually goes, but it uses a lot of the same patterns and notes. There's a lot of Dan's love of grooving on root notes and accenting with fifths. The bass definitely drives this one, and it doesn't suck.
Check out a bit of the verse groove.
Getting back to living life. Cut me some slack. I almost died and I never ever want to see that motherfucking place again. About you, love.
Well, that's Dan. He rules. How do you feel about Dan? Were you a fan of his work with Slapstick or Tuesday? Are you into any of his side projects? What's your favorite Alkaline Trio era, album, and song? Do you prefer Dan with or without the mustache? I'm definitely team mustache. What other bass players do you want to hear me talk about? Let me know down in the comments. Please make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the YouTube stuff. I know it's annoying to hear that all the time, but it really helps. I'm having a great time making these videos, and the more that I know that you're enjoying them, the more that it motivates me to continue. I'll catch you next time, but until then, be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes! See ya.